Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yato Anvayaditaratascha Artheshu Abhigyaswarat Tene Brahmahridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayah Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukadamrita Drava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We now enter the 47th chapter of the 10th Skandha of Bhagavatam. It's a very special chapter because it has the song of the Gopis and especially of Sri Radha. So as we know, Uddhava has come to Vrndavan and Uddhava met with Nanda and Yashoda, and Nanda and Yashoda expressed their utmost love for Krishna and how they miss him. And Uddhava was very pleased to see that love. And then the next morning we saw Uddhava get up and then the gopis found him. So now Shuka Brahma Rishi continues. As soon as Uddhava comes out of the Yamuna and he is dressed in the exact same way Krishna is dressed, so they see him looking of the same complexion as Krishna, dark like a cloud and having lotus-like eyes, wearing yellow silk, wearing a garland of lotuses with brilliant earrings. In this way, he was a devotee of Krishna who looked exactly like Krishna. And therefore, all the gopis were so pleased to see him and wondered who this was because he looks exactly like our Krishna. It says here, Tam Vikshya Krishnanucharam Prajastriyaha Pralamba Bahum Navakanja Lochanam Pitambaram Pushkara Malinam Lasan Mukharavindam Mani Mrishta Kundalam. So this is all the features of Krishna: yellow silk, garland of flowers, lotus-like eyes, lotus-like face, long and strong arms. So all of these, so they see this and they wonder who this handsome person is. And then they recognize, given his chariot and given the way he is dressed, that he must certainly be a messenger from Krishna. Therefore, they approach him, they bend low with modesty, and they inquire of him. And then they recognize, in fact, that it is Krishna's messenger. So they take him to a private place where they can open their heart. And they say, "Oh, saintly person, you look like a messenger of Krishna. Now we know that you are a messenger of Krishna. And you've been dispatched by Krishna to come here. Here we have nothing else to do other than remember Krishna. But we wonder if he remembers us, because they say very poetically that it is said that many forget their friends after they leave. They give some examples. They say the people leave an incapable ruler, the prostitute leaves a man with no money, the student leaves the teacher after teaching is over, the priest leaves a sacrifice after the fees are paid. And in this way, there are those who simply forget after the association is over. So in their own way, they sweetly ask, we are sure Krishna is not like that, but please tell us, does Krishna remember us at all, or has he forgotten us? Uddhava, hearing the sweet message of the gopis and recognizing their complete devotion to Krishna, he is very moved. And the gopis also cast all their shame away. They are expressing their heart out. They are all, many of them married, and they have husbands, they have sons, as we have seen, but their heart is fully surrendered to Krishna. And they normally don't reveal it to anyone, but because Uddhava is a special messenger, they pour their heart out to Uddhava and they say that we are always recalling again and again all the great pastimes of Krishna that happened here, and we are living only in that memory. And when this is happening, a black bee comes there and it is flying nearby, and there is seated in the middle of the gopis the principal gopi, who is Radha. Shuka Brahman does not take the name, but all the acharyas have said that this is Radha, the special and principal gopi, and she addresses the black bee. And it's a very beautiful set of verses where the principal gopi Sri Radha addresses the black bee. She tells the black bee, so she is not addressing even Uddhava directly. She is addressing a black bee while giving the message to Uddhava. She says, "Oh black bee, you are a friend of Krishna, I can tell, because your tentacles are tinged with the saffron from the garland of Krishna. You have gone to the garland of Krishna as you are drawn to flowers, and your tentacles are tinged with the red saffron because I am sure there are beautiful women whose saffron is applied on Krishna and Mathura." So, in this whole set of verses, Sri Radha is giving a very beautiful set of verses that as if complains about Krishna while expressing her profound love. So she says, "I'm sure those garlands of Krishna are pressed by the saffron coming from the women of Mathura. So, having tinged with that saffron from those flowers, don't come and touch me now," she says. Then she goes on to say that what is the use of coming to rustic women like us anyway? Because you are also exactly like your master Krishna, just as he goes around with various women at various times, you also go from flower to flower. She says very nicely that the bee goes from flower to flower, and Krishna was here with the women of Vrndavan, and now he is there with the women of Mathura. So here he drank the drank nectar of our company, and we had the nectar of his company. And then he left, and now he is in the company of other women, just as you do, O bee, because you also go from flower to flower. I wonder how Lakshmi, who is the eternal consort, as we know, how is she ever serving him? I am sure it is because she has been captivated by his sweet speech. Then she goes on to say, "Why are you here before us, homeless people? Because it is better for you to go and sing his glories in front of the companions of Krishna and Mathura." So she says, "We are just rustic women, but he is now surrounded by very rich, opulent women of Mathura. So you can go there. Why are you coming here and singing in front of us? Go there." Because anyway, she says, which woman will resist the beauty of Krishna? She says, his smiles, his glances, his grace, his eyebrows. Which woman can resist? Even Lakshmi cannot resist. No woman can resist. So, therefore, there is no dearth of women who are drawn to Krishna. Why do you have to come here to us rustic women? We are here simply thinking of Krishna because we have nothing else in our mind. She says, and then she says, "Don't come to my foot." The bee approaches her foot and she says, "Don't come to my foot now, because you have learned this art of coming over here and going there, leaving one place to another from your master Krishna. He also left us here, though we had abandoned everything. We had abandoned our children, our husband, our family, and everything, and we came to him and we only took shelter in him. He has abandoned us and left us and gone. And similarly, you also come to my foot now, you will abandon and go. So don't come near me." So every verse here, Radha expresses her utmost love in the way of complaining about Krishna, but underlying that complaint is her complete love, which is called Mahabhava, the highest expression of love. So she says, "We also know, we have heard that Krishna has done similar things in his previous incarnations." She says, as Rama, he was hiding behind a bush to kill Vali. So she refers to a pastime of Rama where Rama kills Vali, the monkey king, because of a word he gave to his brother Sugriva. And then she says, similarly, he deformed a woman Surpanakha because of his consort Sita. Similarly, with Bali, even though Bali was ready to offer everything, he took his gift and then he took away everything from him. So, in all these cases, Radha is pointing out that Krishna, in all his previous incarnations too, engaged in ways which are not straight and clear. But of course, in every single instance, Krishna only or as the previous avatar as Rama or as Vamana. He only bestowed his blessing. Even Shurpanaka, who was defaced, was thereby given the grace of being the instrument for bringing about the whole episode of Ramayana, and therefore she always lives in the memory. And similarly, Vali was blessed by by Rama, so everyone was actually blessed in their own way. But Radha very beautifully uses that to complain, and she says that so many are here who have lost all interest in likes and dislikes, who have no taste for anything else, and they only revel in the supremely delightful stories of Krishna, which is nectar to their ears, and they have abandoned everything and they are living a life like a mendicant here. And yet, because we all trusted him as she deer, so she gives the example of how she deer, listen to the music of the hunter, and they get drawn to the music only to be caught by the hunter. Similarly, she says, we also got attracted by the music of Krishna and left everything and came to him, and yet he has abandoned us and gone, and he has taken our heart away. So let's not talk about Krishna anymore, she says in a very sweet way to Uddhava. In fact, she wants to talk nothing else but Krishna, but in the opposite way, in a sweet mood, in a very, it is called as a particular form of poetic expression where one speaks exactly the opposite of what one feels. So she feels only the memory of Krishna and she wants to talk about nothing but Krishna, but she says outwardly, let's not talk about Krishna because he has left us, he has abandoned us and gone. And then she goes on to say, oh, then the bee again comes near her. She says, oh, can you, but now her mood changes and she says, but can you take us to him? Because we know he is in Mathura, he is far away. You are coming again and again to me. Maybe you are saying that you can take me to him. Can you take me and take all my friends to him? Is it possible? Because how will you take us? Because it is very difficult for us to be taken all the way by you from here. Anyway, how is he doing? Then she finally asks the bee, as it were. She says, how is he doing in Mathura? Does he remember us? Does he remember his paternal house? Does he remember his parents? Does he remember all us innocent gopis, all the beautiful songs we had with him, the dances we had with him? Does he remember any of this? In this way, she speaks. And when she speaks in this way, and all the other gopis are also joining her, Uddhava is completely moved. He has never seen this love, this intensity of love for Krishna. So he immediately glorifies. He says, O Gopis, you have attained the highest object in that your mind is so fully absorbed in Krishna. He says, Aho yuyam sma purnartha bhavatyo loka pujitaha vasudeve bhagavati asam iti arpitam manah. Your mind is fully surrendered to Vasudeva. What a great glory it is. Devotion to him is normally attained, he says, through so many austerities. People perform austerities, fasting, give charities, do sacred fire sacrifices, mutter prayers, study Vedas. So many things people do, and yet you are. You have such supreme devotion to Krishna, which is hard to attain even for sages. He says, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhavati Bhir Anuttama Bhakti Pravartita Dishtya Muninam api Durlabha. Even sages, munis, don't have the kind of devotion you have. You are not talking of a word other than Krishna. You are only talking of him, either praising him or complaining about him or glorifying him or speaking in every possible mood, every possible rasa only about Krishna. So when Bhagavatam begins, we always chant every day, Rasika Bhuvi Bhavakaha. So the essence of Bhagavatam is rasa, the mood, the taste of devotion, which is the highest taste, and that is presented in Bhagavatam throughout, and that is presented at its pinnacle in these episodes of how the gopis were first in communion with Krishna through Rasa Leela, and now even greater than that is their mode of separation, in which they are so intensely in love with Krishna. So here Uddhava says, you are so fortunate that you have such love, and you have all sought Krishna, abandoning everything. This is so rare that you have abandoned your own relations, your husband, your children, your own body. They don't even care about their bodies. You care about nothing except Krishna. And this is so rare. You have such exclusive devotion for Krishna. And by this, you are beholding him every moment. So he says, even though he is away from you, you are in fact with him every moment. I can see this because you are beholding him every moment. You are seeing him as your own self. Your very presence, your very existence is Krishna, and therefore there is nothing other than Krishna that you are beholding. He says, Sarvatma bhavo adhikrito bhavatinam adhokshaje virahena mahabhaga mahan me anugraha kritaha. He says, in this way, with your entire being dedicated to Krishna, due to your separation, having such exclusive devotion to Krishna, you have conferred a great boon. You have given me grace. He says, Me anugraha kritaha. You have given me the grace of your devotion. Now listen to the message that Krishna has given is specifically for all of you. And he says, Krishna has told them, Bhagavan Uvacha, he says, Krishna says, I am never separate from you because it is not possible. Just as all the five elements, space, air, fire, water, and soil, are present everywhere, so am I present everywhere. Krishna says, Bhavatinam viyogo me nahi sarvatmana kvachit. He says, it is never possible for me to be separate from you because I am present everywhere. And he says, I create, maintain, and dissolve everything by own Maya. Everywhere, all that is there is only me. Please understand. Krishna says, Atmani eva Atmana Atmanam Srije Han Anupalaye Atma Mayaya Anubhavena Bhutendriya Gunatmana. Krishna now, or at least Uddhava here, communicates Krishna's message of the nature of Krishna as the supreme being who is all pervading, and therefore he says here, by my own self, in my own self, I create, sustain, and dissolve this universe, and everything is only a modification of my own. And as pure spirit, he says, I am pure consciousness which is untouched by anything. He says, Atma Jnanamaya Shuddho Vyatirikto Gunanvayah. He says, Jnanamaya Shuddho, it's pure consciousness is the nature of self, which is my essence. And therefore, if you simply remain vigilant at all time and not let the mind get attached to sense objects, then that will result in peace. And this is the teaching of yoga, sankhya, and all other systems. So here, the words of Krishna that Uddhava is relating, of course, is again the highest philosophy of Krishna as the supreme being, as pure consciousness, as Satchit Ananda, who is all pervading, who is the source, sustenance of the entire universe, and therefore there is nothing other than Krishna. And yet, in reality, the Gopis do not care for any of this jnana, this wisdom, because they are situated in a transcendental mood of loving devotion, which is even beyond such wisdom, where there is no room for any words even, because all these words even cannot touch that which is untouched, unspoken by words. As it is said, the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. Similarly, even these words, as profound as they are, do not capture the intense abidance of the gopis in the Supreme Being. And therefore, now Uddhava reveals the real message of Krishna. He says, Krishna tells them, in truth, the reason I am separate from you is only to make your longing for me even more intense. Because Krishna says, the mind of anyone gets most absorbed in their beloved when the beloved is away from them. And therefore, he says, that is why I'm away from you, because by being away, your thoughts are incessantly upon me, and your whole mind is upon me, and you have shed all other thoughts. There is not a single thought. You're waiting only for me every moment, and only with this intent to focus your thought completely on me and to be proximate with me every moment. That is the reason I am staying away from your eyes. And therefore, he says, all the cowherd women that are there, even the ones who couldn't join on the Rasalila dance, who thought mentally were always one with me, and therefore you all also who are there, who are away from my eyes now, I am away only because it intensifies your longing, and that is the only reason, and you are always with me. So when this message is heard by the gopis are very pleased to hear this, and therefore they now inquire about Krishna. They say, we hear that Kamsa has been killed and he is now settled as a prince there. I'm sure he is accompanied by many beautiful women there, many princesses are there, and he is, of course, most charming. And therefore, does he even remember us? Again, they come back to the same very beautifully. They say, Api smaratina sadho Govinda prastute kvachid. Does Govinda even remember us? Because we only think about all these nights here in Vrija when he sported with us, wearing beautiful flowers on a full moon night, with the sound of the anklets and the Rasalila dance. Will Krishna come here again? Just as Indra comes and pours rain when the forest is dry, similarly our hearts are getting dry. Will Krishna come here? But then another gopi, now again they go back to the same mood because this mood is so intense, this bhava. So another gopi says, but oh, don't get your hopes high because Krishna is not going to come. He is already settled in a kingdom there. He is surrounded by princesses and all these opulences. Why will he come? We are here in a forest and we are ordinary ladies, and therefore it is best to be without any desire. To relinquish all desire is the best way. But then another gopi says, how can we withdraw the mind from this talk of Krishna? Because who can ever withdraw their mind from him? Everything here, the Yamuna river, the Govardhan mountain, the forest lands, the cows, the flutes, the grounds, everything is hallowed by Krishna when he was walking with Balaram. And therefore, everything again and again and again is only reminding us of him. They say, Punah punah smarayanti nandagopa sutam bata Sriniketais tat padakair vismrutum naiva shaknumaha. How can we forget Nandagopa Sutta, the son of Nanda? How can we ever forget him? Because everything here is again and again reminding us of him. So how can we forget him? How can we forget his charming gait? How can we forget his sweet talk? And then they simply directly address Krishna with a very beautiful verse. They say, O Lord of Rama, O Savior of Vraja, O Protector of cows, will you please lift us from this ocean of suffering? Very beautifully they say, He Nata, He Ramanata, Vrajanata Artinashana, Magnam Uddhara Govinda, Gokulam Vrajinarnavat. O Govinda, lift us from this ocean of suffering. They ask with such pleading voice, directly addressing Krishna in front of Uddhava. When they express in this way, Uddhava is completely moved, speechless, and he decides to extend his stay for a long time. For many months, he stays there because of two reasons. One, to comfort the gopis and Nanda and Yashoda, but two, more important, to soak in that mood of loving devotion, to get that loving devotion for himself. So it is said Uddhava stayed there for a few months and he would pass the days every day going and talking to the gopis, going with them to the places where they sported with Krishna, the river, the wooded forests, the trees, and they would tell all the details of what are all the various pastimes they had there, and he would simply listen to them and they would be happy that he is listening as a messenger of Krishna, but he is more happy to simply listen to these transcendental pastimes. And in this way, Uddhava was listening every day, and then finally he says to the gopis that these you all are the ones who have truly justified having a human body. He says the purpose of having a human body is to have such love for God, such supreme, exclusive love for Govinda, the soul of the universe. This is the purpose of having a human body, and you have attained this even having a very high birth as a Brahmana, as a priest, or studying all the scriptures. None of that is going to be useful unless this kind of abiding love comes, and you already have it. And he says, what's more perplexing is, on the one hand, you are all women who are, on the face of it, doing something which is not accepted by society, because all these women are married women with families, and yet they are not being devoted to their husbands and their family, but they are only devoted and loving Krishna. So, in a normal sense, what they are doing is violating the etiquette of society. On the other hand, Uddhava says, what you have is the highest, unflinching, unsurpassed love, which is not seen anywhere. So, on the one hand, society's standards would make these women look to be really low compared to ordinary women, because they are, on the face of it, not being devoted to their families and their husbands, but loving another man. But in truth, because it is not another man, but it is the Supreme Being, you are on the highest platform through this love. And therefore, he says, Krishna directly confers his supreme blessings on those who always remember him, and thereby you are also assured of it, because you are constantly remembering him. You don't need to. So he realizes this. He says, you don't need to know any philosophy, you don't need to know anything about all the various aspects of Upanishads and all the rest, because you simply remember Krishna, and that's enough. The grace which has descended on the cowherd women of Vrija, he says, this grace has not even come to the celestial women, or forget celestial women, even to Lakshmi herself, because even Lakshmi did not have the fortune of Krishna dancing with her, putting his arms around her on a full moon night, as he did with the ladies of Vrndavan in the forest on a full moon night. And therefore, he says, the path of devotion that you have taken on is unparalleled, that even Lakshmi doesn't have access. Therefore, he finally offers a most beautiful prayer. He says, the only prayer I have is, let me be born as a shrub or a creeper or a plant in Vrndavan, so that the dust of the feet of these blessed cowherd women may touch me. He says very beautifully, Asam aho charana renu jushamaham syam vrindavane kimapi gulma lata aushadhinam. He says, may I be born as a shrub or a plant of Vrindavan, so that I can catch the dust of the feet of these blessed women. He says, Charana Renu Jushamaham. Let me catch the dust of the feet of these blessed ladies, because they have only walked on the path of devotion to Krishna, the path that is difficult even for those who are well versed in Upanishads, and therefore such blessed path that they have been on, that is hard for even the great sages, the great scholars, the ones who know Upanishads, all the rest, that is so effortlessly there in the hearts of these cowherd women. May I catch the dust of their lotus feet by being born here as a plant. He says very beautiful word, prayer. He says, because these gopis, they have embraced the lotus feet of the Lord when he was here through Rasa Leela dance, and now they are with him every moment, even more so, even more than when he was physically present in Vrindavan. Now being away, every single breath they are with Krishna. So how can I ever find such devotion? So he says, finally, he says, I repeatedly salute the dust of the feet of the women of Vraja, whose singing of the stories of Krishna purifies all the worlds. He concludes by saying, Vande Nanda Vrajastrinam Pada Renum Abhikshanashaha Yasam Harikatodgitam Punati Bhuvanatrayam. He says their very singing of Krishna's pastimes is glorifying and purifying all the three worlds. And these women, these gopis of Nanda's Vraja, may their dust be my object of worship. In this way, he offers his highest glorification of the devotion of the gopis. And then finally, after a few months, seeking their permission and the permission of Yashoda and Nanda, he takes leave, getting ready to depart to Mathura. And as he is about to leave, Nanda approaches him and he gives him a lot of presents. And with tears in his eyes, he says, Please take these presents to our beloved Krishna. And our only prayer is, let all our activities always be only focused on Krishna. Let our speech only utter His names. Let our body only be engaged in bending before Him. Let every action of ours take delight only in the memory of Krishna. He says beautifully, all the gopis in fact are there. And Nanda is heading them and he says, Manaso vrittayo nasyu Krishna padam bhujashtrayaha. So he says, may the mind, may thought, may words, may body, everything take refuge only in Krishna's memory. This is our only prayer. Now please take all these gifts and take it to Mathura, to our beloved Krishna. So thus honored by all the cowherds with such devotion that he cannot even conceive of. Uddhava is so moved by such devotion and therefore he is so blessed. And Krishna exactly for this purpose alone sent Uddhava to Vrndavan to reveal the glory of the devotion of the gopis and of Nanda and Yashoda. So Uddhava now reaches back to Mathura. He goes straight to Krishna, falls prostrate in front of Krishna, gives him all the gifts that were given by Nanda and the cowherd men and women, and then he also offers his respects to Vasudeva and Balaram and the king Ugrasena, and he is considering himself most blessed to have the association of all the gopis thanks to Krishna's asking him to go as a messenger. And with this chapter ends. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.